Welcome to Reaching New Heights with Troy Bell, the city manager, City of Muskegon Heights, where you get to know what you need to know so you'll be in the know with 1037 The Beat. Thanks again for everybody commenting here between the shows. I'm excited to be here as always, and thank again to the mayor and the council for having the vision to allow me to serve in this role on their behalf. Not only do I serve on behalf of the council, but I also serve on behalf of the citizenship of the city of Muskegon Heights. So this is a great program. Thanks for the opportunity to be here, PA from 1037. We have a great show set for us here today, and a couple announcements, a lot of stuff going on. And so, with that, I would like to welcome to the show Chief Dean, who was our fire chief, and yep. So, in addition to many other things that he does on behalf of the city, he's one of those people that is well committed, and sometimes to the dismay of the people that work for him because he is doing 1,000 different things. But in a community where we are fighting with the structural deficit that we have to depend on people wearing five, six hats. We have to depend on people who are willing to come in and work 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And so that's what makes the difference. That's what we have to do in order for us to get out of the rut that we're in and begin to progress. And that is what I think you're beginning to see with our community, that we are moving forward with the pros and cons associated with the pandemic. That's one thing. We had to struggle through that. We had to struggle through the impact of the result of that, which Chief Dean was a huge part of us dealing with the impacts associated with health risk and so on and so forth. But now that we're moving away from that, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that, but now when we're moving away from that, we are beginning to progress. And the vision that I have had, the vision that the council has had and set forth for us, the vision that the leadership team has put together, the vision that the population, the community, and the residents and the stakeholders have put together for us as a community on the lakeshore that offers culture, that offers food, music, all of those things that make us unique as a community on the lakeshore from all the other communities in Muskegon and beyond. That is here in Muskegon Heights, and we have a huge opportunity to move forward with that. So, with that, I will stop and welcome Chief Dean to our show.
Thank you for having me again there, Mr. Bell.
Hmm.
It's always a pleasure to get back out here on the radio waves and be able to discuss some of the things that are going on in the community. As you mentioned, COVID was a challenge.
Right.
We still deal with that challenge of COVID right now. A
Hmm.
lot of respiratory illnesses going around,
Yes.
still highlighting the importance of, you know, appropriate distancing,
Hmm.
hand washing, uh,
What's that
vaccinations.
new
If
new virus that everybody's struggling with and that has overloaded our healthcare system?
there's a new respiratory virus that has
Hmm.
been particularly hard on young children, and it's
Right.
gotten the pediatric hospitals throughout the nation
Hmm.
filled up with kids with the this, and it's uh, I'm drawing a blank on name. It's a very simple name, but
RSG
it's
or
a
RG?
RSV.
RSV. There you go.
Yes, RSV,
Hmm.
and it's affecting young people more distinctly than adults. And one of the challenges with young people is there's just not a lot of hospital beds for young
Right.
people. When you look at a hospital the size of our Trinity Health building
Hmm.
currently, that massive building will probably only have 10 to 20 beds for you. So the
Hmm.
Voss Hospital in Grand Rapids, a much larger hospital and hospital system, still will probably have less than 200 children's beds.
Right.
So when these illnesses outside of normal things that go on pop up and increase the number of children in the hospital, it's a strain on the system. Uh,
And
and
one of
it's
the things
and
that I will say that we talked about in council, and we'll share a little bit more about that as the show goes on, is the double-edged sword associated with COVID. and the
Hmm.
mask wearing, and then how that saved us, even though it was a difficult process, and asking people to don these masks was asking a lot. One of the pros of it was that it saved us from the transmission of all of these other types of things like the flu and
Yes.
what is it, RSV, right?
Yeah.
Um,
But it also showed us something very important. It
hmm.
showed us how easy it is to prevent getting the flu.
Right, right.
You know,
If
how
that's
some of
what you
these
want to
things that are
do,
very
right?
common, if you
Hmm.
want to take the steps, you
Hmm.
can have a healthier life, have less risk by some simple things: the distancing, the
Right,
masks, not
right.
showing up to work when you're sick,
Hmm.
and making the rest of the world sick. I
Right.
recently had a bout with COVID where I had several days off because the goal is to be able to serve.
Right. And we as well as I appreciate the fact that you did took the steps necessary, just like we have been preaching to everybody else. The issue of hand washing, etc., are things that we can do. And I guess the double-edged sword of this particular virus was the fact that many of the young people that normally would get the or be, what's the term I'm looking for, would be immune to it or become immune
Right.
to it or gain the immunity due to being interactive, now no longer got that natural immunity because of the fact that they were wearing masks. And now that the masks are a thing of the past for the most part, it's hitting us with a vengeance.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the
Yeah.
double-edged sword of it, right?
Yeah. A lot of those items that you would have built a immune system resistance to, we had a break from,
Right.
and sometimes it's that double whammy where the flu and RSV or something else, because of the fact that the diligent action separated the two
Mm-hmm.
from each other.
Yep. Very good point. So, again, we appreciate that you helped us through that process and that you are the lead and the point going through that. I think I do want to move to that area that um, is critical to the community that we're talking about, that has been a challenge for us, and the department that you lead, the fire department, and being able to serve this community and being a vital and critical part of this community. And I want to pause there and say thanks to all the frontline people, the firefighters that show up every day, whether it be from the front line all the way up to the chief role, that keep us safe. That not only run the medical calls, but also are there to respond when we have fires. Thank you so much for the hard work that you do. Sometimes that we forget about how critical it is, what the investment associated with it is, because it might seem today like putting X amount of dollars away in order to be able to address the technical needs and the equipment needs might not seem as important today. But when you are that person that is sitting there waiting, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds for first responders to show up, and you see the fire department come through the front door or show up on the scene, that level of relief that you get makes all the investment that you had to do for that technical equipment worth it when you're that person.
Yes. Very much so, and it's just with every other department in the city, it's a continual investment that
Yes.
has to occur. Uh, it's and if you compare it to day to day life, you're continually repairing, maintaining, replacing, whether it's a roof on your house, whether it's your car, whether it's your furnace. All those things are a continual process that
Hmm.
if you let it stop, you have to catch up eventually.
Right. Absolutely. And I've said that to many times and to many people. I'm a little biased as a first responder, former police officer. I wasn't loved like firefighters. You guys get to show up and everybody's happy to see you because
Yes.
whenever you show up, you're there to make sure that something great happens, even though it might be terrible circumstances. When an officer
Right.
shows up, in many cases, we have to navigate the situation, but nonetheless, we are the first responders. And there were times as an officer I got to show up and administer CPR and administer the chest compressions and save lives, which was great. That makes me a little biased, but I have to say that it is, as much as we like to have our roads smooth, that it is much more difficult as a city manager, assistant manager, to say, I'm sorry that we didn't have the public works equipment or facilities to be able to make sure that your road was smooth. I'd rather say that than say to somebody that I'm sorry we couldn't save a life because we didn't have the appropriate or proper equipment in order to do that. That's much more of a difficult conversation to have. And fortunately, in my career, I haven't had to say that too many times. And it's difficult because I know Muskegon Heights deserves to have that service for people to show up when they need it and to show up with the right equipment. So that's one of the
Yes,
challenges that
absolutely.
you're faced with.
It is, and it's a difficult challenge because there's a lot of priorities, and you're often stuck with juggling those priorities or trying to create that balance. And city council, they're stuck with juggling the
Hmm.
priorities and balancing, sometimes finite resources,
Right.
and it's not easy to do. It's not easy at all. It may seem simple, but it's always simple if you take it in a vacuum, one item at a time,
In a
and not take
vacuum.
the
Hmm.
the whole setup and go, all these priorities right now, which
Right.
ones can you take care of?
Exactly.
And so they city council has a very difficult job in balancing, and I understand too that they hear about the roads and stuff because that person complained about the roads, house isn't on fire, or they're not having a medical emergency in
Hmm.
their home, but they're
Right.
driving down the road,
Right.
uh, and it's hard to compare the two until you compare the two.
Right. You're going to have 99 people driving down the road to that one that is waiting at the door for somebody to show up to save a life. And so
Yes,
those 99 people are the ones that typically show up at council meeting and make it difficult for the difficult decisions that council people have to make in order to prioritize, life and, and a need that may come sometime down the road versus the person who's in your face today upset about a road that needs to be repaired.
yes, exactly,
Hmm.
and 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 it's easy, the concept of squeaky wheel, no pun intended with roads, but uh, it becomes that squeaky wheel that's always like there. And
Hmm.
those emergencies that are critical incidents and are are not as squeaky until the incident's going on or until something goes wrong,
Right.
unfortunately. And so it creates a lot of challenges.
Sure enough. Sure enough. And then, I do have that vision of the day, as many other citizens and stakeholders do, when we have the tax base, that when we have that surplus that some of our surrounding communities have, that we can provide the necessary services without having to worry about whether or not we're going to be able to put the proverbial food on the table tomorrow because of the commitments and demands that we have to face today. But we will get there, and we're on our way there. But today, we're faced with the challenge of getting our fire trucks fixed, and I know that's something that you hassle with every day, of hiring and retaining officers. And so, if you could talk a little bit about, what the plans are for the fire department. I know we need two trucks. We need a
Yes.
mini pumper. We need a large truck, and heretofore we haven't had new equipment come in for 20 years for two pieces and 11 years for another piece, and so it's time
Yes.
for us to refresh. Am I right on those dates?
You are. Two of the trucks are 24 years old this year, if I'm remembering
Hmm.
correctly, and one of them has just turned 11 years old.
Sure.
Uh, and so you compare that to a car,
Hmm.
except for this car is 40,000 pounds and 60,000 pounds, and
Hmm.
the wear and tear of years of emergency services. You talk about highway driving versus city driving.
Hmm.
These trucks start up and they go
Hmm.
quickly but safely, and that's hard on them. And
Hmm.
sometimes they run for hours on end at fire scenes, and it takes a considerable amount of maintenance. They're
Hmm.
specialty items
Right.
that that have a whole, just like every car has the normal government standards.
Hmm.
Fire trucks have a whole nother set of standards that they have to adhere to
Maintain. Hmm.
through the National Fire Protection Association. And these standards make them more expensive, more complicated,
Hmm.
but also it's a highly technical piece of equipment for specialty emergency work that needs to be reliable.
Hmm.
And so, if we look at our current fleet, the newest truck is about 11 years old, and we got that through a grant. Uh, and
And who was the
that
grant
truck,
writer at the time?
I wrote that grant. I wrote a handful of grants.
Hmm.
I think I've written about 2 million in grants. Hold it, we've successfully received and managed about $2 million in grants through
I'm
my
sure you
my
wrote more
tenure.
than that, but you were
Yeah,
successful in about
wrote more.
2.6. Yes,
Yeah,
and I
grants are
think
competitive.
yeah, yeah, they are competitive, and I think sometimes we forget the benefit and the value that we have by having an in-house person who is working on those efforts to be able to bring money to the table for things that are critical and important to us, like fire apparatuses.
Yeah, the apparatus term, fire truck,
Right,
fire apparatus. Yeah, yeah.
apparati.
But yes, but we had some great success with grants, but understand that grants are competitive, and just as much as our need, there are many other communities out there with similar needs, and so
Hmm.
there may be a grant for it, but that doesn't mean that we will get awarded it, and that's one of the challenges at times,
Hmm.
because we hear that a lot. We hear the first thing is there got to be a grant for that. Well, there has to be
Right.
a grant, there has to be the funding cycle, and you have to beat out other places. And so there's a lot of pieces to that at times. And
Right.
we've been successful. We hope to continue to be successful. But with that most newest truck we have, it's 11 years old. It's currently out of service. It's having some significant pump overhauls and waiting
Hmm.
on parts.
How
The
many
supply
trucks do we
chain,
have active now?
currently, we only have one large fire truck in
Right.
service, and that's the
Hmm.
ladder truck.
Out of three, right?
Which out of three, yes.
Hmm.
The and we have done a tremendous amount of repair and maintenance over the last year and over the last previous year. We last year we spent close to $100,000 in maintenance. This
Hmm.
year we will spend about $100,000 in maintenance for three trucks.
Right.
Uh, a tremendous amount of money, but it also, sure, we're taking the steps to maintain it and take care of it. But as they go out of service, our ability to serve goes up and down. As the truck goes
Right.
out of service,
It's in
it takes
flux.
us a notch down,
Hmm.
and that's so we're quick to work on things. We maintain them constantly, but the age of the fleet impacts like how often it goes out of service because of it's
Hmm.
just we're a high volume city.
Right.
Uh, we're the busiest 3.8 square miles of fire service district, continuous square miles in the
Hmm.
county. Uh, I often challenge people. Sure, other departments run more calls, but in the geographical 3 square miles,
Hmm.
3.8, 4 square miles, there is no other department that has a contiguous area as busy, and they have a lot of newer trucks out there
Now,
to
I
work
want
with.
to, I mean, and forgive me for interjecting. I want to make sure that we're clear that we currently have one truck that's in service out of three.
Mhm.
One truck, I believe it's 120, is in for a long-term overhaul that is waiting out for parts. So it's going to be a while before we can get that fixed and back on the
Yes,
road. And then
that'll be
one other
January. The
January.
part
Okay,
will be in at the end of January.
gotcha. And then 130, the other vehicle, we have to get in front of the finance committee because the repair for that vehicle is going to cost in excess of what my signing authority is. So even though
Yes,
it's an emergency repair, it does have to get the okay of the finance committee. And so hopefully
yes, we still
we
have
will.
to do the checks and balances.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and
Rem-
and with that truck apparatus, we started out sending it in for a different item, and while they were repairing this item with the
hmm.
pump itself,
Right.
they pointed out the other item, and checking and looking, they I went to the shop that was doing the repair work, and sure enough, it is exactly what they said, and that was an additional $7,000 in
Hmm.
repair work. But keeping in mind, it's a 27-year-old truck. We've been repairing it and maintaining it, but it's 24 years old.
Right. And I know that some of the other communities across the state have gone towards a separate millage that pays for all public safety costs and expenses. And we're not there yet, and maybe we never end up going in that direction. But notwithstanding having a dedicated revenue source to be able to pay for those types of things, what is the
Yes.
plan that you have on behalf of myself and the leadership team and the council per se to move forward to address the needs of the department?
Well, as we've discussed, it's a multifold plan. Number one, it's effective, efficient operation. It's
Hmm.
making department choices that are financially sound.
Right.
As we're aggressively looking at trucks, we're saying to ourselves, $100,000 a year in maintenance, or replacing a truck that then decreases our maintenance costs, that then decreases how much we spend over time for trucks, things of that nature. Uh, Fire inspections, being very aggressive and intentional about getting out and inspecting, and also charging businesses for those inspections, because the more we make things safe on the front end, the less wear and tear we have on trucks going on fire. So that also includes very aggressive with the aspect of smoke alarm installs. If you call 733-8893, you'll get the smoke alarm hotline. You leave a message. We're every day we're scheduling out smoke alarms to be installed in residential homes to reduce our number of fires. Our goal really is not to have fires, but the more we prevent fires, the less wear and tear there are on trucks, which decreases cost.
But where are
Working with
we
staffing.
with where are we with what the plans are for the actual trucks though?
Oh, okay. All right. I thought you meant the overall. The
Oh
overall
yeah, I mean
department
that's
plan. This
important,
was.
but I know we
Yeah.
only have a certain amount of time that we have to
Okay.
fit everything
Fair
in
enough.
here. So,
Right now, we're looking at immediate repairs
hmm,
on the apparatus we have to keep them in service to serve the citizens. We're
hmm,
also in the process of going out for bids, and we're looking at demo trucks that are available for to get new blood into the fleet, to get some of these 24-year-old trucks shuffled out to reduce our maintenance costs.
hmm,
The critical need is the replacement of trucks and the maintaining of the equipment we have, uh, because the goal here is to serve every day. And the sooner we're able to move forward with replacing trucks, the sooner we're able to reduce the high cost of maintaining old equipment, which has little residual value. Once we get those are the immediate pieces right now,
okay,
is getting those things done and
hmm,
keeping them moving forward. And the critical need, as you said, we're waiting on an opening for finance committee. I think they're going to have a meeting in very soon, is to get this one repair before them,
right,
and seeking out the aspects of quotes for trucks to get us a new truck, and also we're pursuing grant funding. Uh, as as we look at purchasing equipment, we still want to maximize whatever we can dollars wise that we have. We currently are still in waiting to hear if we'll receive a 2021 AFG grant, Assistance to Firefighter grant through FEMA. If that occurs, great. It gives us some financial flexibility to get
is
a
that
couple
part of
things
the bidding
going.
process?
No, no,
Hmm.
we're going out for bids right away, because building fire trucks takes time.
Hmm.
Even if it's a demo truck, they're moving so quickly. So financially, we're looking at funding to maximize, and with bidding process, a document's going to go out today. Requests for proposals with
Hmm.
based upon specifications of fire trucks that meet the needs of the community and the response area.
I know
Uh,
these are bids that probably that well not probably have gone out in the past, and we had
mhm.
vehicles that were identified that didn't necessarily fit exactly within the budget at the time. But we're hopeful that with this new process, going again, that we will be able to come back with pricing, that we can figure out a way to fit it within the budget again, like we did
Right.
before, but this time with a heightened priority for the demand and for the need as well.
Yes. Yeah. The
Hmm.
demand is high. We're hoping to get a fast turnaround. We, we had I mean, prices go up, and we missed probably a pretty good opportunity at one point. Uh, there's, but the need is there. It's very important, and we hope to get quick, responsive bidders so that we can get these new apparatus that we need.
Hmm. And how long do you expect reasonably for those bids or requests for bids to receive responses?
We're going to put them out right away, and we're going to put a narrow window on it. Uh, and so we're hoping in the next 2 to 3 weeks to have responses back. If in that interim we find something that's pre-built that meets our needs, uh, we will be looking at that opportunity right away. Uh, because the building of a fire truck process, if for a fully spec new build,
Hmm.
most companies that manufacture them, if you're not purchasing some type of pre-build or demo, is a year and a half to 3 years before they'd be delivering the truck.
Gotcha.
The supply chain is really tough right now.
So if we're not successful, and I think I see Joe Rohn joining us here, so we may have to take a quick segue and pull him in to get his announcement. But if we're not successful by the end of the year in getting responses for those bids, I'm assuming if we're not successful in identifying perhaps demo trucks that meet the criteria and the requirements sooner than that, then this is something that we're going to have to regroup and try to address at the beginning of next year's budget cycle, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, yes, we're
Excellent.
going to have to address it as soon as we can at the beginning of the cycle, because we want to invest in a new truck versus in maintenance on aging trucks, because that maintenance is going to really be a significant issue. Like where we're putting money out
Hmm.
that could be invested in that new truck, that is a asset versus a continual liability.
Great, great. Well, know it either way, it's going to be a challenge because it's a difficult decision, um, but it is a worthy decision in order to invest today to be able to save for the future. And so,
Yes,
either way that we end up going on it, whether we're successful, fortunate enough in the month that is ahead of us, or if it's in the beginning of next year, it is a service that our community needs. It is service that we need to be in a position to provide, and I'm glad that you are taking the necessary steps in your role in order to provide that for our community. And I know, in addition to that, you're also working diligently with the firefighters, first responders grant to bring on new firefighters and to retain
yes,
existing firefighters, and that's part of the equation too, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, very much so. We're constantly working with that grant. That that's another grant on the list, but you and Chief Sane helped co-author, uh, and it's providing police officers to the police department, and also providing us some recruitment retention for the fire department. Definitely providing uh, some needed things within the organization,
Hmm.
within all the organizations.
And I will say, folks out there that are listening to us, it would be remiss of us if we didn't point out that you, we have to realize that our fire department and our police department, our first responders, and to a certain extent, the rest of our municipal employees are, I don't want to say fighting, are wrestling with the fact that our neighboring communities that are more affluent, that have surpluses, are able to pay more and offer more benefits than what is typically available to the police department or to the fire department. And so people that want to work, come to work at the fire department, the police department, have to because of that want what we have to offer here, desire it, have a commitment to the community, commitment to this jurisdiction, in addition to a desire and a passion for the work that they're doing in the fire department and the police department, as opposed to going to other communities where they can possibly make more money today, maybe less money in the long run, but more money today.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of great opportunity to serve in the community,
Hmm.
uh, but that is one of the challenges that we face is the competitiveness of pay.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you for joining us on the show today, and for sharing some additional information that some of our residents may not have known about. And feel free if you need to go. I understand if you want to hang around for the last 15, 20 minutes of the show. But I do want, while we have the opportunity, to welcome Mr. Roan to the show and get his updates, because he is, and this is something that's also of interest to the fire department, in the process of the Shops on Sherman project, which
Yeah, great
includes,
project.
yes, an awesome project, includes the demolition of the existing property that's there, some intricate work in maintaining barriers, etc., because of the contamination. But I will stop and let him share a little bit about what they've been able to accomplish. I know it's been a long time coming. A lot of people were suspicious that it would never happen, and now it's happening. But I do want to know, talk to me, Mr. Roan, about what's happening and what's yet to happen, so that our residents and stakeholders know what to expect down the
Yeah,
road.
yeah. Good afternoon,
Good
Mr. Bell,
afternoon.
to you and all your listeners. Um, Thank you very much for having me on. It's
Hmm.
very exciting for us. The demolition is underway, as most people can note in driving across the corner of Peck and
You can
Sherman.
see it. You can see it.
And so, just a little bit about that. The buildings on the surface will be coming down. It should be down pretty much in the next 5 days, but the trucks will still be there for at least another 10 days because we have to take the foundation out. And that is where we're expected to take away about 330 metric tons of debris from the ground.
Hmm.
And then we'll go into a 90-day testing cycle. So it's going to take us a while. We won't see the building sprouting up till around the springtime,
Okay.
but because again, the contaminant is really a problem in that area. So we have to take it down building by building. I mean, it's to the point where we can't even leave any of the debris on the ground. We have to have trucks ready to cart away as soon as we take them away. Eh, But if
Excellent.
you, yeah, so it's going very well. It's on schedule now that they started, and
Finally.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
So what you're telling our listeners and our watchers is that work has begun, work is ongoing, and that we have to be patient because it's not finished yet. It's gonna There's gonna be a brief respite where we're gonna have to wait till the spring until we begin to see something else happening on the property, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, that's correct. Till you start to see it, start the building process, rejuvenating the site.
And
Um,
And what do you anticipate? Can you talk about what will, so people can visualize it? I know there's posters that were up there.
yeah.
I know people got a chance to see part of the vision of it, but talk about what it should look like when once people see things coming out of the ground.
Yeah, so the basic concept is a three-story mixed-use community with additional parking. Uh, there'll be 11 retail spaces on the lower level with two additional levels of apartments, one bedroom,
Hmm.
two bedrooms, three bedrooms, and a couple of condominiums.
Okay, that's
And
excellent.
we will
So,
also have a rooftop garden.
ooh, nice. So you're talking about retail space on the bottom and residential space above with a rooftop garden, huh?
Yes.
Nice, very nice. And what is the projected cost of that whole project?
Well, it's somewhere around 5 million for the project, but Ironically, I'm meeting with the design engineer today, so we may be a little bit higher, but I don't suspect it'll go much more. But that's where we are right now.
Gotcha. And I know that you're working within some cost constraints, and it's you're operating out of your pocket. And as a developer, that's could be a scary, risky process. But I'm going to be one that advocates. I love that 4.5, 5.5 million, because that means property values. That means permit fees, et cetera, for the city, which we are desperately in need of. But also some space movement, some balconies, that kind of stuff. And if you can figure out a way to include those items in within the budget, then I would be excited about that, because I know that's what our folks are looking for.
Yeah, we'll definitely be looking at a few of those on some of those units.
Okay.
We are planning to actually sit down with the city planner and yourself. We haven't sent out the invite yet until we finish our side of it, so that
Okay.
you guys can at least have some input in it. Because we wanted to make sure it fits the city's landscape and their escape plans.
Mm-hmm.
There's some things that we're not a part of that this building will be a part of. We want to make sure it maintains the continuity.
Got it. All right. I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit in front of everybody, but do what you can, and I look forward to, once I get the invitation, to sitting down to having that conversation.
Yeah, I welcome that. I
Much
definitely welcome
appreciated.
that.
Excellent. Well, thanks. I know you are limited on your time and that you're probably going to have to jet on us, but you're welcome to stay. But I do want to segue into some of the announcements so that our folks know what to look forward to in the upcoming weeks. December is always a big month for us, so I want to talk about that. But thanks again, Mr. Roan, for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to the great things that you're doing on the esteemed corner of Peck and Sherman. So, thanks again.
Yeah. Thank you, and thank the community on behalf of Shops on Sherman for giving us the opportunity to be in the community.
Excellent,
Thank you.
excellent. Thanks again. So, just as a quick and brief reminder, I want folks to know that December 1st is tax day. And so the winter taxes will be going out, and I don't want anyone to be surprised if you have not paid your water bill as of April 1st of this year. If you have an outstanding balance as of that date that's still outstanding and you haven't made any payment arrangements, and if you have a renter and that renter, you haven't notified us that you have a renter and provided us with a copy of the lease, then you are susceptible to the ordinance. And the ordinance says, and the council is very adamant about that in certain regards, that we make sure that we limit the liability of the city and that we're collecting where we need to collect on the front end, as opposed to waiting until the properties go into foreclosure. So as of December 1st, those properties that were 6 months in the rears on April 1st and still in the rears are going to see that missing revenue show up on their taxes as part of their tax bill. So just a heads up to everybody. I hate to be the bearer of bad news on one end, but also we need to, if we're going to do things, if we're going to expect change in our community and we're going to do things differently, we have to begin to enforce the existing ordinances that we have. And granted, there are some ordinances that we need to change, that we need to add going forward, and that review is ongoing and in process. But our existing ordinances that are there for a reason, and there's a purpose behind them. And if we're going to get the community to where it needs to be, to raise the bar, to reach new heights, then these are the things that we're going to have to do. So when you see your tax bill, don't be surprised if you are one of those properties or have one of those properties where the water has been shut off 6 months before April 1st of 2022. Again, April 1st of 2022. That's the drop dead date that we're working with, and that information will become part of your taxes. In addition to that, we were hoping that we were going to be able to join today by Mr. Morrow. He wasn't able to make it, and he should be with us in subsequent meetings. But the vacant building fee, if you have a property in Muskegon Heights whether it's a residential, rental, or commercial property that has been vacant, that is vacant, has been vacant, then you are liable for that information as of January 1 of 2022. If those buildings were vacant, your responsibility is to register those properties. It's in the ordinance. We are enforcing that ordinance. You have to register that property, and that registration is an annual registration as long as the properties remain vacant. And so every year you have to register it, and every year there's a fee, and that fee is escalating according to what the ordinance says every year. And so if on January 1 of this year you had a vacant building that you had not paid for, that you had not registered, you will see that appear on your taxes. The ordinance is very clear that the vacant building fees will be liened against properties. So those are the two things as of December 1st that you could open up your envelope and see. There is a process if you feel that that information is incorrect or wrong for you to appeal that, and I encourage you to pursue those appeal processes if it's applicable to you. On a lighter note, on December 5th, I want everybody to come out for the Christmas tree lighting. And I was hoping that Councilwoman Kitchen might be able to join us today. I don't see her peeking in yet, but if she can't make it before we close up, at least that she might be able to join us next Wednesday to talk about it after the fact. But today we're talking about on December 5th, the Christmas tree lighting. The council will be meeting on December 5th to discuss the budget. So please come out for the budget as well as join us for the Christmas tree lighting. I'm not sure exactly what time. It will be after 5:30 p.m. On the 5th of December, right there at City Hall. There will be hot chocolate provided by the police department. There will be a fire pit and s'mores provided by the fire department. So please come out and join us for that. That's going to be exciting. We've got a huge tree thanks to the Christmas committee that's been pulled together by Ms. Oakes and Ms. Kitchen, kind of segueing on the work that Ms. Kitchen did last year with Ms. Tyson. And so this committee has come together and wrapped their arms around the city of Muskegon Heights. Hopefully we'll continue to in perpetuity in the future to be able to raise funds to enhance and increase what we do for Christmas in the city of Muskegon Heights every year. But at least this year, in addition to the lights on the poles, we will have the Christmas tree lighting. And we're excited about the lights that we have on the poles already. It took us, I think the lights on downtown were off for 10, maybe 12, 15 years, longer than that. And the work that we had to do in order to slowly turn those lights on was difficult, but I think it makes a huge difference. The hi-hats are on, the decorative lights are on. Some of them still need to be worked on, and unfortunately some of them, because of the conduit that's underground, we won't be able to service or help, but we are in the process of trying to save them, and it's great to be able to use them for the Christmas lights. So that's part of our holiday celebration. On the 17th of December, we also have the Christmas party down at City Hall. So you have that to look forward. All the donations that you can offer would be helpful for us to be able to provide a Christmas for kids that sometimes would not otherwise have access to toys and gifts underneath their tree. So please be part of that. You can contact us 231-733-8870. If you wake up today, wake up tomorrow, or sometime before the 17th and feel that need and that urge to want to be part of the contributions for these activities. December 15th, we are having our holiday celebration out at, it's from 6 to 10 p.m. at Paradise. And we are celebrating and valuing our employees. So that is the night for our employees and our vendors. So if you haven't RSVP'd already, 733-8870, area code 231, please make sure that you RSVP because we do value our staff. That we can't always give the benefits and the pay, but we can celebrate the family atmosphere that we have here at Muskegon Heights, and we can show how much we value and appreciate our employees. December 15th is our opportunity to show a little bit of that that we have throughout the year. So please come out if you're a staff, employee, or vendor. Um, Water bills, I talked about that. If you haven't paid your water bills, that's going to be on your taxes. Leaf pickup. According to Republic and the contract we have, the end of this week is the last full week of November for leaves to be picked up. If you do not have your leaves picked up, if you don't have your leaves out by your trash date, then it's going to be an expense for you to have your leaves picked up next year. I have asked Republic to see if they could extend that. They have not so far extended that. So as of Sunday of this week, please plan, if you have leaves to rake and pick up, to contact DPW and pay to have those leaves picked up by DPW. If you don't pay to have those leaves picked up by DPW and they are sitting out there, you can be cited for that. You can be fined for that. So please be aware of that. Advance notice, it's on our Facebook, it's on our website. So everybody knows that the end of this week is when Republic ends their leaf pickup process. So please be aware of that. At the last meeting, we did have the approval of the American Rescue Plan recommendations that came out of the cross-sectional focus group, cross-section of not employees, but residents and businesses. And the process they went through of town hall meetings and surveys and public input um, allowed for the consultant that was working with that group to come together and collect all of their input to be able to make a presentation to council. That presentation was made 2 meetings ago, actually 3 meetings ago, and council at our last meeting approved the priorities, the categories, and how much money they tentatively had assigned to each category. As you can see in front of you now, um, with what's on your screen, you can see how the money was allocated. That was one of the questions that was asked at the last council meeting. And so the first 2 lines show how much money was assigned based on the American Rescue Plan to the 2021 budget, how much money is applied to the 2022 budget and the 2023 budget. All of these were approved by council as part of the deficit elimination plan. As you recall, 2020, we ended with a deficit, and because of that, we had to put together a deficit elimination plan, and that deficit elimination plan was approved by council, and it included the use of the American Rescue Plan, which was the original purpose for the American Rescue Plan funding, to be able to address lost revenue and to fill in gaps in the budget that were created by the coronavirus and the epidemic. And so you can see in front of you, after the use of those funds for 2021, 22, and 23, there is a remainder of $3,367,068. That is what's left out of the 10.684772 million that was originally awarded to the city. So with that 3.367068, the committee had to decide how to distribute those funds or allocate those funds. Those funds have to be allocated by 2024 and utilized by 2026. And so these are the priorities that were the recommendation of that committee and the consultant that worked with them, and council approved that. Council has not yet discussed exactly what projects would fall in each of these categories. And so that is a second process that the consultant will come back and work with council about. So if you have any ideas of certain projects that should come under any of these categories that are listed on your screen here in front of you, please send those recommendations to the city council, and more directly to the city manager's office. You can also provide them to the clerk's office, and eventually they will all come back to the city manager's office and be collected and then presented. You'll have an opportunity, based on council's direction, to be able to present on some of those ideas. And those ideas may come from council, and they can come from the audience, from the members of our residents and stakeholders. So please, if you have any ideas, don't be hesitate to bring those ideas in front of council. So if you look at that, you can see 910,000 was set aside for housing. You can see that 390,000 was set aside for um, roads, infrastructure, facilities, and equipment. You can see that um, 290,000 was set aside for safety and security. 375,000 for the downtown Main Street facade industrial park. $400,000 was allocated to be used as part of the category for nonprofit support, including universal childcare, and that is for any nonprofits that are physically located in the city of Muskegon Heights, to encourage the development and use of those nonprofits for those activities. 600,000 for technology and organizational improvement, 400K for parks and recreation. And keep in mind, as you come up with ideas and projects that would you want to propose to use some of the funds from these different categories, the council is looking for those things that will generate revenue in the long term. A one-time expenditure that will ultimately generate long-term revenue, because this is finite money. It's not one-time money, and that's money that will not come again unless it's grant funding. So that I wanted to make sure that you were aware of, that council passed at the last session. And with that, we can now have a discussion with the county about the $6.5 million ask for the county to take from their American Rescue Plan funds that they have not already expended and allocate to spending in Muskegon Heights. And so several of the commissioners were waiting for the city of Muskegon Heights to make their commitments on what they had identified their categories for. And now we are asking that those commissioners ante up, step up, and say, of that 40 some odd $1 million, please spend X amount of money outside of the city of Muskegon and Muskegon Heights. In addition to that, we've talked about the school system and the importance and need of lobbying the governor to get rid of the debt for the school system. And that's kind of a part of what we're asking the county commission to weigh in on, the effort to get rid of, to waive, to forgive the school debt, which has been suffocating and strangling the school district as well as the economic development of houses in Muskegon Heights. So don't forget, if somebody puts a camera in front of you or asks you a question, we have to figure out a way to work with the governor's office to get rid of the debt that is weighing on our school district. It was done for Benton Harbor. It was done for Detroit and many other school districts around, and we have to figure out a way how we can do the same thing for the city of Muskegon Heights. And the last things that I want to mention as we wrap up here, on December 12th, you will have an opportunity to come out to council meeting and see what the Rowan Park sculpture looks like. There'll be a clay mock development of what the bronze sculpture should look like in Rowan Park. And remember, that's part of a $500,000 donation, $250,000 for a splash pad that came from Consumers Energy, and we will see a presentation from them, and close to $200,000 for the sculpture, bronze sculpture, as part of the reformatting of all of Rowan Park, creating a buffer with Broadway, and in interfacing it with the Strand building and the redevelopment of the Strand building. That's all part of what has been envisioned as part of the visioning plan for the downtown area, as part of the grant, $100,000 grant work that's being done to come up with the documents and bid documents for the downtown area. all of that is in motion, and we would love for you to be a part of that. Come out and see the sculpture on December 12th at that meeting. I will talk about that again. And then finally, again, I mentioned the budget discussion on December 5th. Make sure that you show up for that because that's an important part that you want to weigh in on, and encouraging council to either modify, adjust, adapt the general fund budget. The responsibility that the city manager has is to provide a balanced budget to council, which we've done. That was provided approximately 2 weeks ago as of December 5th. And so now it's an opportunity for council to weigh in on that and to make any adjustments or changes so that we have a balanced budget approved by December 31st. And with that, I think I've covered just about everything on my list here. And so I want to thank everybody as we come down to, I know we're a little bit over time, but we're at the last possible second. Thanks again for tuning in to Reaching New Heights with Troy Bell, the city manager for the city of Muskegon Heights, where you get to know what you need to know so you'll be in the know. I'm 1037 The Beat. Continue to be blessed and have a great day.